Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the channel. Zach D Productions here, and I'm here for another throwback list video for you guys. So for this video, I'll be going over, in my opinion, some of the best rock and metal albums of the year 2004. Now, in my opinion, 2004 was not one of the better years for rock and metal music, especially of the 2000s, but you know, there's been some pretty solid stuff to come out in the year 2004, so for this video, we're going to talk about 6 of those albums. This list is also in no particular order, so let's go ahead and begin. And this first album here that we'll briefly talk about is from Breaking Benjamin. Really great band, one of the first bands I ever got into, and, you know, I don't know where I'd be in my musical journey without this band because, well, they are a band that definitely means a lot to me. They've introduced me to basically a lot of bands within the rock and metal world. So, yeah, but the album that Breaking Benjamin released in 2004 is their second album, We Are Not Alone. In my opinion, one of their weaker albums, but still not bad. I mean, obviously it's on this list, and I still think it's a good album, even though I think it is one of their weakest, maybe even their weakest. But even with that said, I still think, you know, once again, the album is pretty good for what it is. I mean, of course you have the song So Cold on here. You can maybe say that's one of their best songs. Follow's a good song. Same could be said about Firefly. Break My Fall, Sooner or Later, really good stuff. This album, I think, does have some of Breaking Benjamin's weakest material, though, such as Rain, the closing track. Never been a fan of that song whatsoever. You know, Believe, I'm kind of like iffy about as well. Not too crazy about that one. But yeah, the second half of this album is really where it starts to, I guess, go downhill. But overall, the album is still good for what it is. So, We Are Not Alone by Breaking Benjamin. Next, this album here is by the classic metalcore band Killswitch Engage, probably one of the greatest bands in the metalcore genre. So the album that they've released in 2004 is the first album with Howard Jones on vocals after, of course, Jesse Leach left the band. The End of Heartache by Killswitch Engage. I know a lot of fans say that this is their best album, or at least this is their favorite Killswitch album, but for me, it's actually not my favorite. It's actually not even my favorite of the Howard Jones era. My favorite is actually As Daylight Dies. But don't get me wrong, this is still a really great album. It is. It's definitely, you know, a must-listen if you love metalcore or claim to love metalcore. But yeah, really good stuff. Really good stuff. I mean, you got really solid tracks on here. Take This Oath, Rose of Sharon, World Ablaze. I mean, the title track. Come on, really good stuff. So, The End of Heartache, Killswitch Engage. So this next album here is by the band Demon Hunter, really underrated band, and they were actually one of the first metalcore bands I got into, and this is the band that really opened up my mind to heavier music as well. So the album that Demon Hunter released in 2004 is their second album, Summer of Darkness. In my opinion, one of their weaker albums, but still not bad. I mean, I would say that this is actually one of Demon Hunter's heaviest albums as well. You know, it's got some really good stuff on it. You know, Ryan Clark's vocals on this album, you know, his growls on this album just seem like deeper, more menacing than they would on, you know, later Demon Hunter records. But with this one, yeah, it's pretty heavy stuff. Some favorites of mine on the album would have to be Not Ready to Die, which is, of course, a Demon Hunter classic. My Heartstrings Come Undone, of course, a classic ballad of theirs. Our Faces Fall Apart, which actually features Howard Jones. That's a good song. Less Than Nothing is pretty good. I Play Dead, probably one of the best Demon Hunter songs in my opinion. Very unique. Yeah, I mean, this album does have some songs that I think are kind of just meh, though, such as the last 3 songs on here, Everything Was White, Coffin Builder, and The Latest and the Last. These songs aren't bad, but they just don't really do much for me, and they kind of lack replay value. And honestly, you could really do without these songs, in my opinion. But yeah, one of my main, I guess, gripes with the album is I do feel like the album is a little too long. They could have taken out a couple tracks from this one and maybe made them bonus tracks to a deluxe edition or something, but yeah, I think the album would have actually had more impact if it closed off with I Play Dead, because that's a really great song, and yeah. So Summer of Darkness, it's a good album for what it is still. So this next album here is by the band Fear Factory. Really great band in the industrial metal genre, probably my favorite in the genre as well. So the album Fear Factory, released in 2004, is their album Archetype. This actually might even be one of my favorite Fear Factory albums as well. It's just a really fantastic album, and probably one of their heaviest albums too. I mean, I think really all the songs, if not at least most of the songs, are great. I mean, of course, you have really great stuff on here like Slave Labor, Cyber Waste, Drones, the title track. Really great stuff. Just really great stuff, really heavy stuff as well. But yeah, very raw sounding and things like that. So yeah, Archetype by Fear Factory. So this next album here is by the band In Flames. Really great band. Yeah, they kind of changed their sound for the worst, you could say. They went from melodic death metal to more alternative metal stuff, but yeah, with this album here, you can definitely tell that, well, they're leaning towards that alternative metal side. So this album here by In Flames that's on the list is, of course, Soundtrack to Your Escape. This is not one of my favorite In Flames albums. I would even go as far to say that it's, you know, not one of their best. There's some pretty solid stuff on here, like Friend, The Quiet Place, Dead Alone, My Sweet Shadow, and Evil in a Closet. Evil in a Closet I really dig. That's a really unique song for the band, but yeah, pretty solid stuff. I'd say this is maybe a good introduction to In Flames if you're not really into Megadeth. So yeah, Soundtrack to Your Escape by In Flames. Not one of their best, once again, but I still think it's a good album for what it is. So yeah, check it out if you haven't already. So this last album here is by the band Megadeth, of course, classic thrash metal band. Dave Mustaine, one of the most well-known names in not only just thrash metal, but just metal as a whole. Really great frontman, and the album that Megadeth released in 2004 is The System Has Failed. Maybe not one of Megadeth's best albums, but I still think it's a pretty good album for what it is, and there's some pretty underrated stuff from this album. I know that some people say that this album would have worked better as a Dave Mustaine solo album or whatever. Yeah, you could make that argument, but, you know, I still think there's some pretty good stuff on this album. Like Blackmail the Universe, Die Dead Enough, which is maybe my favorite on here. Kick the Chair is a good song. Back in the Day, it's alright, you know. A few skippable tracks, but for the most part, I think it's good. It's a good album, so The System Has Failed by Megadeth. Well, there you have it. That's a list of some of the best rock and metal albums of 2004, based on my opinion, of course, so let me know what you think. What did you think of the choices for this video, and what albums do you think are some of the best of 2004? Feel free to let me know. So on that note, thanks for watching. Have a nice day, and take care.